Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivakacharya Statara Satashi Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nantikoti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Nita Gopramanandi Haribol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, Text 35, and the chapter is entitled The Glories of Devotional Service. Pasyanti te me ruchiranyam bhashanta Prasana Vakcharuna Lochanani Rupani Divyani Varapradani Sakam Vacham Sprihadniyam Vedanti Pasyanti te me ruchiranyam bhashanta Prasana Bhakcharuna Lochanani Rupani Divyani Varapradani Sakam Vacham Sprihanyam Vadanti Pasyanti te me ruchiranyam bhashanta Prasana Bhaktaruna Lochanani Rupani Divyani Varapradani Sakam Vacham Sprihanyam Vadanti Pasyanti te me ruchiranyam bhashanta Prasana Bhaktaruna Lochanani Rupani Divyani Varapradani Sakam Vacham Sprihanyam Vadanti Pasyanti te me ruchiranyam bhashanta Lochanani Rupani Divyani Varapradani Sakam Vacham Sprihanyam Vadanti Pasyanti te me ruchiranyam bhashanta Sakam Vacham Sprihanyam Vadanti. Ladies? Pasyanti te me ruchiranyam bhashanta Prasana Bhaktaruna Lochanani Sakam Vacham Sprihanyam Vadanti Pasyanti me ruchiranyam bhashanta Prasana Bhaktaruna Lochanani Rupani Divyani Varapradani Sakam vacham sprihanayam vadanti. Pasyanti, see, te, they, may, my. Ruchirani, beautiful. Amba, O mother. Janta, devotees. Prasanna, smiling. Bhakta, face. Aruna, like the morning sun. Lochanani, eyes. Rupani, forms. Divyani, transcendental. Varapradani, benevolent. Sakam, with. With me. Vacham, words. Spirihaniyam, favorable. Vedanti, they speak. Translation. O my mother, my devotees always see the smiling face of my form with eyes like the rising morning sun. They like to see my various transcendental forms, which are all benevolent, and they also talk favorably with me. Please repeat. O my mother, my devotees always see the smiling face of my form with eyes like the rising morning sun. They like to see my various transcendental forms, which are all benevolent. And they also talk favorably with me. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Mayavadis and atheists accept the form of the deities and the temple of the Lord as idols, but devotees do not worship idols. They directly worship the personality of Godhead in his Archa incarnation. Archa refers to the form which we can see, which we can worship in our present condition. Actually, in our present state, it is not possible to see God in his spiritual form because our material eyes and senses cannot conceive of a spiritual form. We cannot even see the spiritual form of the individual soul. When a man dies, we cannot see how the spiritual form leaves the body. This is a defect of our material senses. In order to be seen by our material senses, the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts a favorable form which is called Archa Vigraha. This Archa Vigraha, sometimes called the Archa Incarnation, is non-different from him. Just as the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts various incarnations, he takes on forms which are made out of matter, clay, wood, metal, and jewels. There are many Shastric injunctions which give instructions for carving forms of the Lord. These forms are not material. If God is all-pervading, then it is also in the material elements. There is no doubt about it. But the atheists think otherwise. Although they preach that everything is God, when they go to a temple and see the form of the Lord, they deny that this is God. Actually, to their own theory, everything is God. Then why is a deity not God? Actually, they have no conception of God. The devotee's vision, however, is different. Their division is smeared with love of God. As soon as they see the Lord in his different forms, the devotees become saturated with love, for they do not find any difference between the Lord in his form in the temple, as do the atheist. The smiling face of the deity in the temple is beheld by the devotees as transcendental and spiritual, and the decoration on the body of the Lord is very much appreciated by the devotees. It is the duty of the spiritual master to teach how to decorate the deity in the temple, how to cleanse the temple, and how to worship the deity. There are different procedures and rules, and regulations which are followed in temples of Vishnu. And devotees go there and see the deity, the Vigraha, and spiritually enjoy the form because all the deities are benevolent. The devotees express their minds before the deities, and in many instances, the deity also gives answers. But one must be a very elevated devotee in order to be able to speak with the Supreme Lord. Sometimes, the Lord informs a devotee through dreams. These exchanges of feelings between the deity and the devotee are not understandable by atheists, but actually the devotee enjoys them. Kapila Muni is explaining how the devotee sees the decorated form and face of the deity and how they speak with him in devotional service. Translation. O my mother, my devotees always see the smiling face of my form with eyes like the rising morning sun. They like to see my various transcendental forms, which are all benevolent, and they also talk favorably with me. Om Jnana Timanandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Anmulatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this chapter is Lord Kapila, an incarnation of the Supreme Lord, talking to his mother Devahuti about the process of devotional service. So this is a very beautiful text. Krishna's eyes are compared to the rising morning sun. Arana, like the morning sun, and Lochana, eyes. So I Googled it and to see what this actually meant, and actually came up with a good answer. And so what it said was Krishna's eyes are compared to the rising morning sun because they are full of life, warmth, and a radiant, compassionate glow, similar to the Lord's benevolent power at dawn. The comparison also links to his lotus eyes, symbolizing beauty, purity, and divine compassion. Radiant and warmth. Just as the morning sun dispels darkness with light and warmth, Krishna's eyes are seen as radiant and full of life. They bring a sense of hope and new beginnings to his devotees. Compassionate gaze. His eyes are described as being full of compassion and love for his devotees, watching over them constantly and protecting them when needed. His lotus-like beauty. A common epithet is Aravinda Dalaktasyam, which means his eyes are long and beautiful as the petals of a blooming lotus. The lotus is a symbol of purity and divine beauty, making the comparison an expression of his divine and flawless form. So in the beginning of this purport, Srila Prabhupada is talking about the Mayavadis and the atheists, that they go to the temple of the Lord, but they look on the deity and they see the deity as just an idol or just a statue. So they cannot understand the Lord because the Lord is known through revelation. So these persons, their hearts are pretty hard like stones, so the Lord stays as a stone to their vision because they don't have that necessary element of devotion which a devotee has. And Srila Prabhupada said that the devotees, they don't worship idols, they worship the deity as a supreme personality of Godhead. So a devotee is called Shastra Chakshush. A devotee, he sees through his ears more than just through his eyes, because our eyes are very defective. So through the process of transcendental knowledge, one can begin to understand the form and position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through purification of the heart, through the process of devotional service. So as Prabhupada mentions in the purport as well, he's quoting, he doesn't actually say the Sanskrit, but the verse of Lord Brahma, where Lord Brahma sings, Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Shanta Shadeva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achinta Guna Swarupam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Brajami. So this is actually how a devotee sees the Lord. He sees the Lord in his heart of hearts, with eyes tinged with the salve of love. But to get to this position, to understand the position of the Lord, one actually has to start from the beginning. So the qualification for bhakti is faith. And to have faith, one has to be willing to learn this science from the advanced devotee. So as Lord Krishna says in text 434 of Bhagavad Gita, it's one of the most simple verses of the Bhagavad Gita, which all devotees would know, or should know. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadakshanti te jnana jnaninas tattvadarshanaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. So when we come to spiritual life, one of the first things we taught, we chant the Hare Krishna mantra. We chant 16 rounds a day, and we follow the 4 regulative principles, which are no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, and no intoxication. So these four activities, they're considered the destroyer of good activities and a hindrance on the path of devotional service. So these qualities, these activities, they destroy good qualities. So can anyone please say, what does meat eating destroy? Mercy. Intoxication destroys austerities. Gambling destroys truthfulness. And illicit sex destroys cleanliness. So these 4 qualities, they're actually the pillars of Dharma. Satyam, truthfulness. So speaking and living truthfully and avoiding deception, this is one of the qualities of Dharma. And truthfulness is a leg of Dharma because it's a fundamental pillar of righteousness and a vital spiritual practice for purifying the mind and upholding moral integrity. And it's a significant spiritual discipline that purifies the mind, body, and soul. So a person who is truthful is very conducive to spiritual life. Someone who tells lies and is very untruthful, it's not a very nice quality, and it isn't a symptom of one who is walking the path of Dharma. There's actually a very nice quote by Lord Ram. Lord Ram is an incarnation of the Lord who appeared many millions of years ago, and he said he's the epitome of Dharma, morals and righteousness. And he said those of the Raghu dynasty, they would rather give up their life than give up their word. So important is this quality of truthfulness that the Lord, when he comes, the Lord actually teaches this quality. And then there's Daya, mercy, showing kindness and empathy towards all living beings and helping to relieve their suffering. So a devotee just doesn't think that mercy is a quality that should be just shown to the human beings. This quality should be shown towards everybody, the animals, everybody. It's a very important quality. I remember when I lived in Cairns, there was one woman, she used to come to our stall, and she used to say, I only eat animals who are killed humanely. And I mean, if you think of such a thing, it actually is such a ridiculous thing to say, because it's like a person goes into somebody's house and he kills all the residents. And when he goes to court, he says to the judge, oh, but I killed them at nighttime when they were asleep, so they didn't feel anything. And the judge says, okay, I'll let you go, you were being very kind. So it's a very similar sort of thing. It just doesn't make sense. So mercy should be shown to every living entity. And tapa, austerity. So austerity is the wealth of the brahmanas. And practicing self-discipline and voluntary acceptance accepting some convenience for a higher purpose. So we perform austerities like we get up for Mangalarti in the morning, even though we may not feel like it. It may be freezing cold outside, but we will do this because it's for the pleasure of the Lord, and it's very conducive for our advancement in spiritual life as well. We follow Ekadasis, we fast on fasting days. We do so many forms of austerity, but it all has a purpose in mind for pleasing the Supreme Lord. And then the fourth quality, socham, cleanliness, maintaining both internal purity and external purity. So internal purity is maintained by the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And externally, cleanliness is by bathing and wearing clean clothes. So, and also our body is considered a temple of the Lord, so we keep a temple in a very clean condition, and there's that saying, cleanliness is next to godliness. And it's not by giving up these activities that we're the loser in any way. We're actually gain so much more. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, in verse 259, Vishaya vinavatante niraharasya dinaha raso varjan rasapyasya param drishva nivartate. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, although the taste for sense objects remains. But by ceasing such activities, by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. So by giving up these activities, we receive something much higher and wonderful. It's a higher taste we receive, a spiritual taste which can't be compared to anything on the material platform. And then with humility and submissiveness, one can understand the truth of spiritual life and the association of devotees. So in Bhagavad Gita, in 10.9, Lord Krishna says, they discuss about the glories of the Lord, Bodhyanta Parasparam. So when topics are discussed amongst the devotees, it's very different to what Srila Prabhupada calls the discussion of the debating club of non-devotees. So when non-devotees discuss the Bhagavad Gita, they may be discussing from the point of view where they look at Krishna as a mythological figure, and the Bhagavad Gita is just like a novel. And there's no devotion there, so they may be debating like, oh yes, this is what I think, no, this is what I think, or this is what we all agree with, so we'll go with that. But that's not how the spiritual literatures are supposed to be taught. It's even in universities, if the professor is teaching Bhagavad Gita, but he doesn't have this quality of devotion, it's just a subject matter to teach the students. He may be materially very qualified, but he has a spiritual disqualification of not having faith, then it comes to nothing. So it's not possible for non-devotees to understand the sacred literatures without a sincere willingness to learn, and also to have the key qualities of humbleness and submissiveness. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he used to say it's like licking the outside of the jar of honey. As much as you lick the jar on the outside, you're not going to taste the honey. So it's just like these Mayavadis and atheists, there's no nectar there in what they're proposing, but the devotees actually know how to open the jar of honey, and the spiritual master, he opens the jar of honey and he gives this nectar to the disciple, because the disciple has that those qualities of humility and submissiveness and that great eagerness to want to know about spiritual life. So 10 verses earlier, I know a lot of devotees have quoted this verse, but it's a very, very famous verse. Satam prasango mama virya samvido Vajanti hitkarana rasayana kata yad joshanad ashvaparaga vivatmani shadab rati bhakti anukramisyati. Actually, my spiritual master, he's always pressing on about this point that devotees have to learn verses. It's very, very important in spiritual life. By learning verses, then we can concentrate more on Krishna and what Krishna is saying, and it can become a big part of our lives. So this verse means, in the association of pure devotees, discussions on the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and therefore he is freed from his attraction. And his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begins. So when Lord Krishna, he spoke Bhagavad Gita, he spoke it to Arjuna, and then he says to Arjuna that, I'm speaking this knowledge to you because you're my devotee and you're my dear friend. And so the devotee has the willingness to hear, and the willingness to learn, and the willingness to change. Krishna didn't speak Bhagavad Gita to someone like Duryodhana, as Duryodhana was very sinful. Even when Lord Krishna went as a messenger of peace to Hastinapur on behalf of the Pandavas, he said to Duryodhana, please return Indraprastha to the Pandavas, and then we'll avert war. It won't happen. And Duryodhana, being as obnoxious as he is, he said, no, I'm not going to give them that. And then Krishna says, okay, then you just give them 5 villages, and from those 5 villages, they'll be satisfied. And Duryodhana, he says that very famous saying that I won't give them even enough land to put like a pin into. And then after that, Krishna's just going to leave, and then Duryodhana's like, okay, I'm going to arrest Krishna. He doesn't see Krishna as the Supreme Lord. And all the soldiers come to Krishna, and then Krishna, he shows his universal form. And still, when Krishna shows his universal form, still Duryodhana doesn't accept that this is the Supreme Lord. He's like, oh, Krishna's just a magician. He's just doing his tricks so that he's bewildering everybody. So Krishna doesn't speak to people like that. Krishna speaks to his devotees. So the verse is mainly about the Archavigraha, or the deity form of the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada says, actually in our present state, it's not possible to see God in his spiritual form with our material eyes and senses. We can't conceive of the spiritual form. We can't even see the spiritual form of the individual soul. So Srila Prabhupada, he also makes a point that we can't even see when a person dies. We can't actually see the spirit soul leaving the body. So when a person dies, there's symptoms where you can see a person has left, like they stop breathing, their skin color will change, and at a certain time, rigor mortis will set into their body. So we can tell like that, but we don't actually see when the spirit soul leaves the body. So Srila Prabhupada is saying, well, we can't even see something on the material platform, so how can we see something on the spiritual platform, something as pure and as wonderful as Krishna? But Krishna is very kind. He knows our position, and that's why he agrees to appear in the form of the deity. He's very, very compassionate. And as Srila Prabhupada states, that the deity can be made out of different materials like clay, wood, metal, and jewels. And the carvings are done according to scriptural injunction. They're not done by mental speculation. So Srila Prabhupada, he also says that the deities they're waiting to talk to you. They're just waiting for you to be ready. So Krishna's very kind, that anyone can worship the Lord in his deity form. They can dress, when you have your Brahmin initiation, you can dress the Lord, or you can offer garlands. You don't even have to be Brahmin. You can cook for the Lord, you can offer prayers to the Lord, and you can see the Lord's reciprocation and feel his love and kindness. And the Lord, he answers our prayers. So I'm sure we've all had experience with the deities, how they reciprocate with us. And it's very wonderful as pujaris. You get to dress the Lord, and you become very attached to the Lord, because you're touching the Lord's transcendental body and you feel the Lord's kindness and mercy. It's actually a very wonderful service. So it's very important that the deities are the center of a community. And this is actually something I saw very strongly when I went to New Vrajadharma in Hungary. The devotees there, they're trained very, very well, that everything is by Krishna's mercy. When you talk to any devotee, all different devotees, you talk to them, they always say, this is Radha Shyam's mercy, Radha Shyam this, Radha Shyam that. They're always, they're very, very focused on the deities. And when you're in the temple room, you feel that Shakti, because the devotion is actually very, very wonderful. So it's very important that even when guests come, we see that these are Radha Govardhana's guests, they're Krishna Balaram's, Giriraj Gaunitai's guests, they're Srila Prabhupada's guests, that we treat everybody very, very nicely and we welcome them here because this is the deity's home and we're here as their servants. And so we treat everyone who comes here very nicely. So in Vrindavan, there's 7 main temples, and the deities were worshipped by the Goswamis and other advanced devotees. So I was just wondering if devotees can remember which deity belongs to which Goswami. So can anyone say who Sanatana Goswami's deity is? Radha Mohan, yay. And Rupa Goswami? Radha Govinda. Jiva Goswami? Radha Damodar. Gopal Bhatta Goswami is Radha Raman. Raghunath Das Goswami? That's quite hard. That's Radha Giridhari. Madhu Pandit is he's Radha Gopinath. And Shamananda? Radha Shamasundar. And Lokanath Goswami is Radha Vinod. Actually, a couple of years ago when I went to Jaipur, we went to the Radha Vinod temple, and it was amazing, the pujari there, he is like a 76-year-old man, and he had been serving Radha Vinod for 25 years, and he was doing everything from waking the deities up in the morning to cooking all their offerings, to dressing the deities, to doing all the artis, to putting the Lord to rest at night. And this devotee was such a wonderful, wonderful devotee. You could really feel his bhakti. And he was so happy that he was the only one serving the deities. No one else was helping him. And it was very, very wonderful to see how he had looked after the deities. And you could see the reciprocation because you could see he was a very advanced devotee. So there's many pastimes of the Lord where the Lord talks to the devotee or reciprocates with the devotees in his deity form. And the Lord does reciprocate with the devotee because the devotee is seeing the Lord with the eyes tinged with the salve of love. So the first pastime we can mention is Shakshi Gopal, or the witness Gopal. And actually, if devotees like to watch videos of the Supreme Lord, I would really recommend watching this one. It's actually I think it was just made in the last week or two. And it's done by a company called Yukta Vairagi Studios. It's an AI video, and it's 20 minutes long, but it's really very, very devotionally done. They also have another video called Narad Muni and Kailashta Brahman, which is also really wonderful. So I would definitely highly recommend that. So with Shakshi Gopal, long ago there were 2 brahmanas. One was an elderly brahmana. He was from the place of Vidyanagar, and then there was a younger brahmana. And so they were on pilgrimage. They were traveling to all different holy places. And so the elderly brahmana, he's a wealthy brahmana, it was harder for him. So the younger brahmana, he served him. So wherever they went, the younger brahmana, he looked after the older brahmana. And then they reached the town of Vrindavan. And when they were in Vrindavan, they were in front of Gopal deity, and they had finished their pilgrimage. And so the older brahmana said to the younger brahmana, I thank you so much for helping me. If it wasn't for you, I would have had great inconvenience. And the younger Brahmana said, no, I was very happy to serve you. This is my duty. And then the older Brahmana said, I'd like to give you something in return. I'd like to give you my daughter in charity as your wife. And the younger Brahmana is like, well, I don't think that, you should say something like this because your family might not agree. And the older Brahmana is like, it doesn't matter, I'm saying this. And so they're in front of Gopal deity, and so the younger Brahmana says, okay, so you're saying this in front of Gopal. So then the older Brahmana goes to his home, and the younger Brahmana goes back too. And then the older Brahmana, he says to his wife and eldest son, he says, while I was on pilgrimage, there was a young Brahmana who was quite poor, but he was very wonderful. He helped me, and he, by his grace, I was able to do the pilgrimage. And in return, I've offered my daughter in marriage to him. And they're very angry. They're like, what? How could you do this? This is a poor Brahmana. We don't want this to happen. And the wife said, if you do this, I'll take poison and I will die. And the old Brahmana said, well, I've given my word, so this has to happen. And the older son and the wife is causing a lot of argument against it. And so the elder Brahmana says, well, what am I going to do when the young Brahmana comes here? And the son says, okay, just tell him you don't remember making any promises. So then the younger Brahmana, he comes, and he says to the older Brahmana, I've come now to see you, and you promised your daughter in charity to me. And the son is there, so the older Brahmana, he's quite worried, and he goes, I don't remember. And then at that point, the son, he gets very angry, and he says, you know my father's wealthy. You tried to drag him and take his money, and now you're making up these lies, and he chases him away. So the young Brahmana, he calls the villagers together, and he says, he's Brahmana, he promised me his daughter in marriage, but because of the problems his wife and son are causing, he's very reluctant to say that this is what happened. And he said, okay, so I will go to see Gopal, and I will call him as a witness to uphold this Brahmana's vow. So the villagers and the son even said, oh yeah, okay, if you do that, then we will accept this. And the son's thinking, well, that's not going to happen, this is just nonsense. He says, yeah, but I'll accept it. So the young Brahmana goes to Vrindavan, and he goes to Gopal deity, and he prays, my dear Gopal, and he's very humble, and he's praying to the Lord, please help me. I need to uphold the promise of the Brahmana, and only you can do this. So Krishna, Gopal, he says, I'm very pleased with your humility. So you just go back to Vijayanagar, and you just, as you go there, I'll appear there, and I'll tell them that, okay, this is what happened. And the Brahmana says, no, you have to come with me, because they may not believe that, but if you come with me, they'll believe you. And then Gopal says, well, who has ever heard of a deity who can walk? He says, well, if you can talk, you can walk. So then the deity of Gopal, he agrees to follow. He says, but the condition is I'll come, but don't turn around. You can tell I'm behind you by the sound of my ankle bells. So the young Brahmana, he's walking towards Vijayanagar, and behind him he can hear the sound of the ankle bells of the Lord. And when he comes very close to Vijayanagar, then he can't hear the ankle bells anymore. And he turns around and he sees Gopal, and Gopal says, okay, I'm going to stay here, but you go call the villagers and you bring them all here. So the young Brahmana, he runs and he gets the villagers and the Brahmana and his family, and they come back, and everyone's very shocked to see that Gopal's walked so far and he's come to uphold the promise of the Brahmana. So then the wedding takes place, and it just shows Krishna's very, very merciful with his devotee. He can reciprocate very nicely. And then there's also a very nice story of Madhavendra Puri and Kirchor Gopinath. So Madhavendra Puri is a very great devotee. He's the spiritual master of Ishvara Puri. And so he was on a pilgrimage, and he came to the temple of Gopinath. And this temple is very famous, that the sweet rice is considered really fantastic here. It's actually in a place called Ramuna, which is not far from Jagannath Puri. Very, very beautiful place. And so when he goes there, the offering is taking place, and Madhavendra Puri is talking to the Pujari. And Pujari is saying, yeah, we make this wonderful sweet rice for Lord Gopinath, and it's a very famous sweet rice. And in his mind, Madhavendra Puri is thinking, if I could just try a bit of this sweet rice, then I could make it for my deity Gopal. And then the offering finishes, and then Madhavendra Puri, he's very, very shocked. He's like, I was thinking of enjoying the Lord's offering while it was being offered to the Lord. I'm such a sinful person. And he left the temple and he went to the marketplace. And so it was nighttime, and he was resting in the marketplace. And that night, the Pujari, he did the offering to the Lord, and then he went to take rest. And while the devotee, the Pujari, was resting, he had a dream. And Lord Gopinath came to him in his dream, and he said, behind the curtain, I've saved a pot of sweet rice for my dear devotee Madhavendra Puri. He's in the marketplace, so please you take this sweet rice and you take it to Madhavendra Puri and tell him I saved him this sweet rice. So the Pujari woke up, and when he went on the altar, and he saw that actually there was a pot of sweet rice there. And so he took the sweet rice and he cleaned the altar, and he went to the marketplace. And then he said, Madhavendra Puri, will the great devotee Madhavendra Puri, well, he didn't say great devotee, he said, will the devotee Madhavendra Puri please come here? And so Madhavendra Puri heard him, and he goes to the Pujari. And the Pujari says, you are the most fortunate person in the 3 worlds. This Gopinath has stolen some sweet rice for you. So he gives the sweet rice to Madhavendra Puri, and he pays his dandavats to him. And Madhavendra Puri is in so much bliss that how wonderful the Lord is, that the Lord, he reciprocates with his dear devotee. And Madhavendra Puri is such a great devotee. He was not thinking, I want to have this sweet rice to enjoy for myself, but he was thinking, this is from, I'm thinking about my deity Gopal. So that's another pastime of the Lord. So it's nearly 8:30. Is there any comments, questions, or anything else? Yes.
Thank you for a wonderful class and interesting stories on deities, pastime. I was wondering, because Srila Prabhupada's created movement as a preaching movement. He also introduced deity worship later days, I believe. And but when it comes to like this situation, like there are so much service for deities, and you don't have time to share Krishna consciousness. So how do we see that, and how do we balance this both important service?
Well, we have to do what's necessary for Krishna consciousness. And our service it's very dear to the Lord. There's many things we can do. I mean, even in preaching, Prabhupada says there's prasadam distribution, there's book distribution, and there's Harinam. And so even in the temple, say if we have to be in the temple 7 days a week doing service, still we can see there may be many guests that come. And so we can find some time for preaching to the guests. So with younger devotees, we can also help look after the younger devotees. But also it's important that if we feel that we need to go out and preach, we also, that's why we have our authorities we can go to, and we can ask, can you please facilitate this desire, I would like to go out and preach. And generally, this can happen, you know, and but whatever one's doing, if one is a full-time pujari, one's serving the Lord, that's a very wonderful, intimate service, and one's always with the Lord, one's careful with dealing with the Lord. And one is making a lot of advancement through that service as well. So that's also just as important, because it's a very necessary service for a devotee, whatever service one does. You know, if one's sweeping the temple room floor or whatever one's doing, one may be very busily engaged in service, but this is just, if we're doing it with that mood of pleasing Krishna, so we might not have the time to go out, and maybe it can't be possible that it can be made, that time made for us, but if we just do our services, Krishna, I want to please you. And we find a lot of times that Krishna will make arrangements. Krishna's in our heart, Krishna sees our desires, that Krishna will see that this is what my devotee also wants to do, and we'll see that Krishna will bring that opportunity to us as well. Okay, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.